Good afternoon, everyone. It's coming up on 2 o'clock on the West Coast here in Las Vegas, where it's a balmy 104 degrees. I have to say, we have had the mildest summer that I can remember. I know 104 sounds like a lot, but usually by this time we're in the 110s, 120s. And again, um, for those of you around the world, Las Vegas is a hub of tourism. And not in the brochure. I mean, people know that it gets hot here. Um, I don't know how they do it, but the place where the weather station is can be 10 to 15 degrees cooler than um, the real temperature. And how we know, you know how cars these days have those internal thermometers. And so oftentimes in the heat of the summer, I will notice that my car says it's 120, 122 outside, and the posted temperature is 104 or 105. No matter. I have to say it's been really pleasant. We've been very, very fortunate. And I know there's a lot of weather going on around the world. My gosh, we had the earthquake in Russia and tsunamis. I did check with my friends in Hawaii. One of my good, the fellow Kumu in the Hawaiian tradition I'm going to talk about today lives in Hilo, Hawaii, which is a coastal town on the Big Island. And she's fine. They have about 5 foot waves, which is nothing to worry about. And Hilo, historically, I know in the 40s had a bad tsunami. And so, we're all in this together. Today, I want to talk about HUNA, HUNA, which is the shamanistic. You've heard me talk about it before. Today, I want to talk about it in a bit of a different context. As we talk about the intersection of science and spirituality, I follow lots of people. I love Neil deGrasse Tyson, who is an astrophysicist, I believe. And I tell you all about the ancient aliens and the pyramids and just all that stuff. There is a theory out there that says that despite what we think in our narcissistic way of being, because we think, and I'm going to speak for myself, that we've been enculturated to think that our way is the best way and our way is the only way. And that, modern society with all of our technology and all of our AI and all of our wisdom. Now, Neil deGrasse Tyson will say, and I'm going to get the exact numbers wrong, something like life expectancy of humans was 35 years old until about 1840. By the year 1900, it went up to 45, 50, something like that. Life expectancy in some nations globally, in some of the healthier nations like parts of Greece and Hong Kong and Japan, is 85. And now we have more centenarians than ever before, people living to be 100 or greater. The thing that I will say to youth, because I work with a lot of youth, and it freaks them out a little bit. So I'm 65, and I work with teenagers. I work with young people, graduate students in their 20s. And I, will just say to them, I'd say, well, you've got a 100-year career ahead of you. Stops the room. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Joshua. I'll say to Kelly, honey, you may have 100 years left in this body, because we're so, up until 1840. Now, all of recorded history, meaning from the time humans hatched, or evolved out of whatever we evolved from, the average life expectancy globally was about 30, 35 years old. The reason why many families had so many children is because many of them died of lots of different kinds of things. And the beauty, like it or not, argue about our modern technology, argue about global warming, argue about junk food and processed food and all the things that we do, addictions, what we do to harm ourselves. The reality is statistically that the global life expectancy is raising. Now, at the same time, the global populations are decreasing. Many countries globally are showing population decreases that are concerning to some countries like Japan, Italy, Sweden, other places where the what do they call it? Birth rate. The birth rate has gone down, and that they're not replacing, there are more people dying than living. Not because they're getting sick, it's just that fewer people are having kids, fewer people are getting married, and so on. But that's not the topic of today. Today, I want to talk about, you may have 100 years. If you're in your 20s or 30s right now, it's not inconceivable that you'll live to be over 100. So let's say 80 years or 70 or 90, 80 or 90 years. Um, I have a business partner here at the clinic. I'm at the clinic now, and she's a few years older than I am, and we're really in great shape. I mean, and not to be arrogant about it, but really healthy, really vibrant. I mean, I show no signs of slowing down. I'm in better shape now than I was in the last 20 years, just by weight loss and just the physicality and getting over cancer and, really feeling good in my body. It's a pleasure, because the thing when we say, oh, gee, I want to live to be 100, well, do you? Do you want to live that long? What's the quality of your life can be? And I can say, so we're planning. We have this clinic. I mean, gee, it's, now almost 30,000 active patients. We have dozens of providers. We're expanding. We continue to grow. We started a veterans program. And this isn't a pitch for Heads Up at all. It's just that I'm at the stage in my life where I get to look at, okay, what do I want my legacy to be? What do I want to leave for the next generation? Certainly my passion and my life's work in the last 30, 40 years has been developing the next generation of excellence in psychotherapy and hypnotherapy and spiritual teachings and things like that. And I'll continue to do that until I drop dead. I have no plan of retiring. Some of you know um, that I had cancer, and I bring it up not to just because it was a milestone, because I really did. I had stage 4 cancer, 2 cancers, bladder cancer and prostate cancer, and I was told in no uncertain terms that I should get my affairs in order because I wasn't going to probably live. I wasn't going to probably survive it. They were going to do the best they could with all their technology, and lo and behold, because I used a combination of HUNA and hypnosis and energy work and all of the holistic alternative complementary tools. And I used Western medicine. I had 8 surgeries over 5 or 6 years, chemo, immunotherapy. I didn't do radiation. Um, and here I am, better than ever. And so Colleen and I were talking about the clinic and about, this is a big deal. It's a big operation. It makes a huge contribution to the community. And what happens when we're not here to run it anymore? What happens when, who do we turn it over to? The fantasy is somebody walk in with a big checkbook and want to buy it. Well, we've tried that. It hasn't gone very well so far, but we figured that we have about 10 years, not 10, but listen carefully. I am not thinking I'm going to die in 10 years, but I can easily work at this pace for another 10 years. I love my life. I love what I do. I have the freedom to travel. I get to make a difference in people's lives. I get to teach. I get to teach what I want. And it's almost like after a lifetime of trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up, here I am grown up doing exactly what I love doing. And when they say that if you find something you love, you'll never work a day in your life because it doesn't feel like work. Now I have to manage myself. Funny, last night, last patient of the day, we have a 15-minute grace period, meaning if you come to your appointment here at Heads Up, we will hold your spot for 15 minutes. And after that, you have to reschedule. The assessments that I'm doing take about an hour. And so if somebody's late, half hour late, it'll put me late. Now, selfishly, it was the last appointment of the day. And I waited my 15 minutes. I checked with the front desk. We have a text string, and I said, is so-and-so here? And they said, well, nope, not here. So I packed up all my stuff and I'm literally walking out of the door. And the front desk guy, Levi, stopped me. He goes, he's here. And I saw the patient facing away from me. He couldn't see me. He was at the front desk at the window checking in. And my heart sunk. My attitude had already left the building. Like I was already done for the day in my head, and I feel bad about this a little bit. We talked to him today. He's fine. He rescheduled, and he was apologetic for being late. And he said he could have called. It's all good. We got him rescheduled for next week. But I felt a little guilty for setting the boundary, And I ruminated a little bit on the way home, because I thought, oh crap, it wouldn't have been a big deal for me to turn right around, go back into the office, unpack my computer, say, come on in, and then work, into 6 or 7, however late I would have had to work to get his assessment done. But I held to the boundary, and I did feel a little bit guilty for doing that. And I will say that what has, I'm looking at Joshua saying, dang, Kelly Dean, you be looking kind of fly for the second highest commenter. What's yo snap? Such an interesting language they speak, these kids these days. I think you can see the chat when you're live with us, but may not be able to see it on the recording. But anyway, we have some folks online that are chatting with each other. It's a beautiful thing. So felt a little guilty for setting the boundary. That lasted about 5 minutes, and I got right over it. Went home, had a lovely evening, relaxed, and that kind of thing. So today, what I notice in my travels, and I am a scientist, I have a PhD, a doctor of philosophy. I have done research, I have published, I have worked for the Centers for Disease Control, I have worked for the National Institute of Mental Health, I have worked for universities, I have done research as part of my doctoral work, I have published a number of journal articles. I am not full-time a researcher, and I have done research, and I am a scientist. And I will be doing research in the coming years on some of the new devices that we're getting. The ExoMind, which is a transcranial magnetic stimulation device. I'll talk about that in another video. We're just starting to look at that. What I'm noticing is that science and spirituality are merging. And if you look historically with Darwin, if you look at Galileo, you look at Da Vinci, Da Vinci, people are funny. They think Da Vinci was purely an artist. I believe he was an inventor. And the term Renaissance man really pretty much talks about him. Now, this is also interesting. Up against our talk about, I did a video on the Berdach, which is the Native American third sex, gender. There's the male, the female, and then there's the third gender, which is more androgynous, called the Berdach. And in the Native American tradition, those who have more balanced male and female energies were considered to be the wise ones, to be the medicine men, the witch doctors, the shamans, and things like that. And it is widely known that Da Vinci was gay, and Michelangelo was gay, and maybe even Galileo was gay. I don't know. We don't, how do we know? I don't know. Bottom line is, if you look at some of the prominent, LGBTQ luminaries, a lot of them are, pretty bright and pretty cutting edge, on things that they do. And I, having studied HUNA, which is the Hawaiian tradition of shamanistic tools that I'll go over today. Oh, by the way, we have a class coming up. There'll be a link in the description below. And you can find it on the website, drpatrickscott.com, under live events. We're doing the first time all virtual level 1 HUNA. And so if HUNA, and I'll talk about what it is and a little bit about what you can expect in the class, but if that speaks to you, it spoke to me almost 20 years ago. It almost called to me. I didn't really understand what it was, but it was an elective in the course catalog for my PhD program. And of course, I joked that I saw a tax deduction and a trip to Hawaii, and it was a 2-week course, I think. And I have never looked back. And I am just fascinated by this stuff, including I didn't understand it, and I didn't know why I was so enamored by the idea. I wasn't at first. I was more curious about it. HUNA, HUNA, literally means concealed wisdom. And so the funny story is in the 20s, the 1920s, there was a social anthropologist named Max who was traveling, studying, he's a white guy, studying the Hawaiians, and he came across various ritual with people that appeared to be priests or shamans with congregations in various shapes and sizes. And he kept asking. Now, I equate it to, there's like a Catholic mass, and it's quiet. and somebody walks into the middle of the cathedral in the center aisle, and the priest is up there doing the benediction, and they've got the incense and the candles and all that kind of stuff. And they stand and they put their hands on their hips in the middle of the mass and say, what are you guys doing in here? What's all this about? What's with the candles? What's with the guy in the funny hat? What's with the guy with the robes? That kind of thing. Well, Max, Freedom Long was his name, would go to the natives, the native Hawaiians, and basically, because he was an anthropologist, he was studying the culture. He had all sorts of questions about what are they doing over there with that ritual and the chanting and the regalia and the whatever he saw, and they would try to shush him by saying, "Shh, that's HUNA. Shh, that's HUNA." Which he thought meant they're doing HUNA over there. That the thing that they're doing is called HUNA, like walking into the Catholic Church and go, what are you doing in here? Well, this is Catholic, or this is Mass. Oh, okay, that's Mass over there. That's what they're doing. It's called Mass. Well, HUNA, what they meant was, and I digress. Shut up, idiot. That's secret. That's sacred. That they're worshiping. You are totally violating all rules of everything sacred by being so loud and obnoxious. And I don't know about you, but I because I travel a lot and I go to Asia frequently, I realize I see all these rules of what not to do in Japan and what not to do in Korea and what not to do in Indonesia, and they're pretty stratified. If you're on a train or a subway in Japan, you do not speak. And if you are the ugly American who's loud and obnoxious and wants to be on your cell phone, the funny thing is they may not say anything to you, but you'll get the side eye. You'll get the hairy eyeball because it is not done. And what I appreciated so much about Japan was how quiet it was. Children in public do not shriek. They do not scream. They do not run up and down the airport terminal. They're well behaved. They're quiet. And trains and subways and buses in Japan are quiet. If you need to talk on your phone, you go between. There's a place between the train cars where you can go and make a phone call if you need to. But the Japanese are extremely orderly. When you're at an escalator in Japan, you line up on the right side to allow people to pass on the left, unless you're in Osaka. And apparently in Osaka, you line up on the left and let people go on the right. I learned very quickly that it is rude and disrespectful not to finish all of your food. And I'm these days not a big eater. And so I would routinely only eat a portion of whatever meal I was with. And oftentimes I would have breakfast or lunch or dinner with students. And they were kind to me. They were very respectful, but they would just say, "Kumu, are you going to eat that?" And I thought, oh, no, I'm not going to. Go ahead, which I thought it was interesting because they had their own meal. I learned later that it's seen as disrespectful and wasteful to not finish everything that you ordered. And so I'm going back to Japan next year, and I'm going to have to kind of reconcile that because they're also very gracious about bringing lots and lots and lots of food as a gesture of welcoming. And so these cultural imperatives are really important. So Max wrote a book. I forget the name of the book. I actually do. I think I'm sure I read it way back in the day when I had to do my dissertation. But it's HUNA means that it's sacred. It's concealed wisdom. Now, if the techniques of HUNA are energetic, there are 18 different aspects to HUNA, everything from the hula, which is the dance that you all know, and there's modern hula called awana, and there's ancient hula called kahiko. And hula isn't just about wiggling the hips. It's got messages, it transmits energy. Chanting transmits energy, it calls the energy down. And for those of you that have been in class with me and I chant, people can feel it. Many people say, wow, I can feel the whole energy in the room change when you chant. There's an aspect of divination or prediction. There's plant-based medicine, aromatherapy, lapa'au, which is sort of a herbal medicine tradition. There's prediction, divination, it talks about that. There's calling the energy, which is la'au kahea. There's the work with the elements. There is meditation, and so on. I'm not going to go into all the 18 aspects, but what you learn that at the various levels of HUNA. Why you would study it is If you are on a path of spirituality, if you are on a path of self-discovery, if you're having your own mental, physical, emotional, spiritual issues, to start I mean, I'm going to tell you, HUNA saved my life. I used everything, but I have tools. I'll talk about a few of the tools that we go over in level one. It's really cool. Now, I recently I guess it's coming up on 10 years I've been a teacher or a kumu. You have heard the word kahuna. Kahuna means literally the keeper of the sacred. So huna, same word. Ka meaning keeper of, facilitator, teacher, priest, shaman. So a kahuna was like the teacher, the priest, the shaman, like that. We don't use the word kahuna anymore, although you will see it used. Our lineage doesn't use it because the system that created kahuna no longer exists. And so now in conventional talk, the Hawaiian word is kumu, which just means teacher. But to be a kumu you're really respected. Now you can be a kumu of anything. I happen to be a kumu of HUNA. There are kumus of hula. There are kumus of hut building, kumus of boat building, kumus of herbal medicine, just teachers, kumus of lomi lomi, which is the massage therapy technique, and so on. And so if you're on a path of spirituality, you're on a path of curiosity about the way the world works, HUNA is a wonderful, wonderful exploration. What I'm pleased about is that I think everybody should go to Hawaii. There, I said it. I think it's a wonderful experience. It's a total immersion class. The school that I go to and that I teach for is in Hawaii. It's based in Hawaii. It's based on the Big Island. Our lineage that goes back generations is from the Big Island. Now we were not royalty. The kahuna, the teachers in our lineage, were not royalty. We were the kind of the advisor to the king. And so there would be the king or the ali'i, and our particular lineage was in charge of calling the energy. It was called a la'au kahea, which is just the one who calls the energy. And also the kahuna that supported the king were the ones that would make predictions, give advice about when to go to battle, when to, the weather, helping with various things like that. And so why you would be interested, I would do more research, and you can certainly look at our website. You can look at HUNA.com, which is Dr. Matt's website. If you've studied with him, he's my teacher, and you can learn more about the tradition. Now, what you'll get, let me back up. When you go to Hawaii at level one, and I'm really going to try not to exaggerate, it's expensive. And I mean, just to go to Hawaii, the airfare is expensive. The food is expensive. Renting a car is expensive. The hotels are expensive. The class tuition really isn't bad for a 9-day training, but you're going to be gone a couple of weeks. It's an intensive training. And I think everybody that has the means should do it. Having said that, I've gotten feedback in the last decade or so that not everybody has the means or the time to take 2 weeks out of their busy schedules and spend $10,000 to $15,000 on going to a class. And I did, and I was very fortunate. And many people can't. Many people can't. And I had a student recently. We just did an STFU class, which is the psychic development class, and this particular student, had taken the level one virtually in May, I think, of this year. And she said something really provocative. She said, I've been curious about HUNA. I've been curious about spirituality and the shamanistic traditions, but I just couldn't justify the time and the money to investigate it further. I didn't know if I was going to like it. I didn't know if I was going to be interesting about it. So when, Kumu Patrick's 4-day over 2 weekends virtual class came available for $1,500 instead of thousands, I signed up because some of my friends had signed up, and I really wanted to experience it and see it and just kind of test the waters a little bit. And so she discovered online that she for $1,500 for a 4-day training over the weekend, didn't have to take any time off of work, was able to fit it into her schedule, did it completely virtually. Then she signed up for level 2 and then came to Las Vegas to do level 2 with me whenever we did it a few months later, and had a really great experience, and is planning to take level 3 in Hawaii, in Kona. Because now she knows she loves it, she's on the path, she's really wanting to explore that further and get deeper into it. And so I say that many of us who are kumu in this lineage we have a kumu in Great Britain who offers classes there. We have a kumu in Japan who offers classes there. I have taught in Japan. I'll be going back to Japan next year to teach HUNA and psychic development and some more advanced classes. And what's really cool for me is in our STFU class last weekend or a couple weekends ago, we had somebody from Ireland and I just love that. I love that the internet and this platform allows anyone from anywhere to log in and see it. And that we're becoming a global community, which I think is really great. In our level 1 class in May, we had somebody from Switzerland, and that person took it online from Switzerland virtually, and then flew to the States for level 2 and took it in person, the 5-day training in person in Las Vegas. And she too felt like she could justify the expenditure of time and energy because she had scratched the surface. And so if you're at all interested in studying more about this. Now, level 1, there are levels, and it's like anything else. There's first grade, second grade, and so on. And the reason why they're broken up is that level 1 is really for your own development. It is for you're learning the basics. You're learning about forgiveness. You're learning about releasing negative emotions and limiting beliefs and internal conflicts and letting go of karmic patterns and core wounds. You're looking at your relationship with the universe. You're looking at your relationship with yourself. You're looking at elements, the basic building blocks of energy. You're actually learning how to do energy healing in real time with other people, if that's interesting. You get some symbols, much like Reiki symbols, which you can use for your own healing and use on other people. They're called opua, or symbols. You learn some chanting in Hawaiian, and I remember I thought, oh God, I'm never going to be able to do that. There is something, if you've ever sang in a choir or you've ever vocalized in the car while you're singing in the radio, there's something very powerful. In Buddhism, we say the voice does the Buddha's work. So level 1 is very much geared to you and to you only. Level 2 is for others. If you're a practitioner and you want to help other people. Level 3 is geared toward communities, groups. If you're a teacher, trainer, a coach, it's geared more. And as we go into the levels, we get more into things like clearing spaces, entity removal, exorcism, helping with communities, helping with remote viewing, and some more psychic kinds of things. And then level 4, we get into the tarot, we get into astrology, numerology, all sorts of. I've taught segments on psychic development, or STFU at level 4 in Kona as well. Right now, level 1 is available, like I said, in Japan, in the UK, with me in Las Vegas, or virtually. Level 2 is only available with me in Las Vegas. It is also available annually, Kumumat. You know what? Kumumat has gone to do level 2 in Japan, but now Kumu Tomoe is doing her own level 2 in Japan, in Japanese, sorry. And then level 3 is if you, as you progress level 3 so far, you must go to Hawaii. But by then you've done a number of classes and you kind of know what you're getting into. I did have some students also say that even though money was a concern initially, they had so changed their life condition and their abundance mentality that as they've progressed through the levels of HUNA, the money is coming. Their businesses are doing better. They're making more money. They've gotten raises and promotions at work. They've become an entrepreneur, and that money is no longer the issue it once was. And so that's also something to look at. There's a saying in HUNA, Ohe pau ko ike ko halau, which means think not that all wisdom is in your school. And I just recall in my study of psychology, all of those theorists, Aaron Beck and Albert Ellis and William Glasser and Viktor Frankl and Carl Rogers and Adler and all these, they're trying to sell books. And so they would basically very much say, you got to study with me and you got to buy my book because my way is the only way, and that kind of thing. And I'm smiling when I say that because they didn't really believe that, but it was a great way to sell books. and they would just sit. They would a lot of times at the close of these conferences, all of them would be on the stage, and they would be having a dialogue, or we would be doing a Q&A, a question and answer period with them, and they would give each other a hard time, and it was all in good sport. The Hawaiians are very humble and very much about, oh, I don't know. We have a way. This is our way. We have some thinking. Please come on along. Leave your prior knowledge at the door. Would love to teach you what we know, and we would love to hear about you, what you know. But it's a very peaceful culture, a very grounded, sacred culture. And so, what you learn day one, we do a lot of release work. And so you'll come, it's a lot of meditation. And if you've never meditated, it's easy. We guide you through every step of the way. But we do what's called ho'oku'u. And so if you followed me for any length of time, you will notice that there's a monthly ho'oku'u webinar that we do that's an hour long to release negative emotions and limiting decisions, limiting beliefs, karmic patterns, internal conflicts, core wounds. And we do that to help prepare you to receive your higher selves. And then we also teach you ho'oponopono, which is the forgiveness, code of forgiveness, the Hawaiian code of forgiveness. It is thought that we carry with us the energies of everyone we have ever encountered. And so the Hawaiians were really good on clearing those and cutting those cords. And that's a really powerful technique. And so day one is all about release work, all about letting go, and you'll feel much lighter. Day two then is about installing new strategies. It's about learning your higher self, bringing in the elements, doing a past life regression as to when you were a spiritual practitioner in the past, and bringing down energy, really starting the work with healing, basic healing with the elements. That's the first weekend. And we get a lot done, and the feedback I got is that the online course works beautifully. In fact, I had one student who did the level one virtually, and then she came to level two in person. She said she actually felt the energy more virtually than she did in person. So then we come back the second weekend, and we learn more about the elements and practicing the elements. And we do a dream interpretation. We create fire elemental, which is creating a use for energy and how to put energy into a space. You get opua, which learn the symbols, which you learn how to use for healing and for clearing spaces, and for bringing down light and to enhance meditation. You learn a meditation on the light, and that's really effective and really helpful. And so, and then we conclude day four with chant class, and learning how to chant, learning how to use the energy, doing energy sessions on each other to help with healing and balancing the elements and balancing the energies. And it's just a really great class. And so I encourage you to at least check it out. And that's coming up here 2 weekends in August of 2025. It would be, I think it's August 16, 17, and 23 and 24. But the information is available on the website. So I want to talk some more about this whole intersection of science and spirituality. And whether you've studied Chinese medicine or Ayurvedics or HUNA or any sort of religious or spiritual tradition, that was typically diametrically opposed to the study of science. And now Neil deGrasse Tyson will say, and I agree with him, that what we have and the reason why we're living so much longer is science, and that science is teaching us how to eat better and how to live better and how to take care of ourselves. And despite what he says is, despite what you think about global warming or pollution or whatever, there's proof in the pudding that we as humans have done such a good job of managing disease, managing famine, managing global disasters, that people are living longer and longer than ever. Which is why I say to some of you young folks, you got solid 100 years ahead of you in this life to make a difference in the world, which is really awesome. And I'm so happy, to report that. I won't be here, but You'll all be around for much, much longer. And that's really cool, you know? Um, we have enhanced our quality of life, if you think about it. Now, in I was going to say enhanced, enlightened cultures, now this is an anthropological dialogue now, cultures that were considered evolved were very communal in nature, very tribal in nature. And it goes something like this. You're living in the village. And this pushes some people's buttons about social convention. Now, make no mistake, whether you look at the Native American tradition, the Indigenous Hawaiians, Pacific Islanders, Aborigines from Australia, Eskimos, from the Arctic. If you look at, yeah, that's pretty good. Vikings, things like the Mayan, the Inca, uh, uh, Aztecs. Now, some of them had very elaborate, the ancient Egyptians, very elaborate societal structures, but they also knew what they were doing around energy. And I do, and if you're interested, I would recommend watching all the pyramid shows and Ancient Aliens and all that kind of stuff, because we don't really know who built the pyramids and how they built them, because we can't figure out the physics. There is one theorist, and I can't think of his name, he's an older guy, who thinks that the ancient Egyptians had mastered levitation, levitating objects with energy, and that the Great Pyramid wasn't a tomb, but rather it was an energy conducting machine. And they have all their theories about why that is. And I wouldn't even say it's a theory. I'm going to say it's a question. How do you move an 80-ton block of granite and get it 350 feet in the air using pulleys and levers? And they have tried using modern technology, even using cranes, and they can't lift stuff that heavy. So there's all those questions. Tribal life was highly structured, and I'm going to say Hawaiian life, although it appears to be so hang loose, it has a lot of rules. Japanese culture has a lot of rules. Korean culture has a lot of rules. Like it or not, American culture has a lot of rules as well. And when you travel, you learn things. There's a series of YouTube videos out there that, things not to do in South Korea, things not to do in Japan, things not to do in China. And a lot of them are like, I wouldn't know. Do you know that in South Korea, there are buttons on stoplights, just like we have here? Now, in America, the button is to have the light change and use the crosswalk. The buttons are also that way in South Korea, but they're only for people who are visually impaired. And if you go as a fully sighted person up and start pressing that button, you're going to get weird looks. In Korean subways, there's very strict rules about who sits where, and that pregnant women are issued a badge, not unlike this, and they have special pink seats in subways. And it's really strict, meaning if there's something on the Korean subway and it's a pink seat, no one sits there unless you're pregnant, and they don't. And similarly, in Korean subways, you don't talk, you don't use your cell phone, you're extremely respectful, and it's very quiet. And apparently it's very quiet. There are seats on subways and buses for the elderly. If you're not elderly, you don't sit there. And it's not one of these things that, well, I'll sit there until someone comes along and then I'll get up and offer my seat. No, you don't sit there. You don't sit there. In Japan, you don't eat while walking. You don't take everybody in America has their water flask and they're walking around with their water. It is seen as disrespectful and kind of low class to be walking, like go to a fast food place and get some food and then be walking and eating, or walking and drinking coffee. When I was in Tokyo, my host, who's another teacher for us, said, do you want to go to the Starbucks by the palace, by the Imperial Palace? I call it the Imperial Starbucks. It's really cool. It's really nice. It's big Starbucks, big line. And you walk in there, it's just beautiful. And you don't get to go. You know how in America, everything is to go. Imagine you go to a Starbucks and they have porcelain cups with saucers. So I ordered a cafe latte or something, a hot cafe latte, and it came in a big cup on a saucer, and they served it to you. You go sit down with your friends, and you sit there. And how civilized! You sit with your friends, and you have coffee. You don't get a to-go container, and understand it. It's not against the law. These things are not against the law, but they're just not even ethical. They're just customs. You don't walk and eat. The other thing in Japan that you won't find is public trash cans. Now, there's a reason for this. There are no public trash cans because a few years ago, I think it was the Falun Gong or something, were doing terrorist things and they were putting bombs in trash cans. And this may be 20 years ago now. So now, particularly in Tokyo, there are no, I realize for those of you that are watching this probably know more than I do about it. There are very few public trash or waste receptacles. And so if you go to a 7-Eleven, which are fabulous in Tokyo, by the way, and you buy something, but I was going to say a Twinkie or drink or something, plan on carrying that trash with you all day until you get back to your hotel or back home where you can dispose of it properly. The other thing, there are layers and layers and layers of rules about trash and recycling and different kinds of recycling. Very complicated. In Japan, you have to pay quite a lot of money to have garbage or trash or things hauled away. So let's say you're doing spring cleaning, and whereas you would in America just you've got these big trash bins, you just put all your stuff in there and then even put stuff sitting out on the curb. In Japan, you have to pay a lot of money to have that stuff hauled away, and so on. So there's lots of rules, but indigenous tribal culture was very communal. And what I'm about to say may ruffle some feathers because, you've heard me talk about the Berdage or the third sex. I don't mean this to be political because it's not political at all. This is just kind of how it went. Communal cultures believed that younger people were better at childbirthing than older people. So in a communal setting, younger people, younger than the age of consent now, were having sex. And they were birthing babies because they would have elders that would take care of the babies. Now, the children having babies were, say, 15, 16 to 18 or whatever, having the babies, were not expected to care for the babies, nor was it an expectation that the people making the babies be married in a monogamous way, and that sexuality was all over the map. And there was no judgment about whether you were alone, a solo practitioner, whether you liked whatever you liked was fine. There was no real judgment about it. And that young people, because they're highly sexual, who better to birth the babies than the young people? Who better to rear the children than the grandparents and the aunties and the uncles? Who better to care for the cooking? Who better to do this and to do that? And although to us it looks barbaric, they lived very peaceful lives. And they had an answer basically for everything. And a lot of our societal structures around, monogamy, and you don't get married until a certain time, but you got to get married. You need to have kids. You have to get a job. You have to do this or that and the other thing. Certainly there were roles. There were gender roles. There were cooking and cleaning and harvesting and hunting and gathering and warring and, rites of passage and people who were the shamans and that kind of stuff. And what we're learning about anthropology and about history, if you look at the ancient Egyptians, you look at the Mayans, the Aztecs, some of these lost civilizations, highly ordered, highly structured. And what we're learning is they may have had technologies that we don't understand, which leads into a whole rabbit hole. Where do they come from? And are these aliens? And are we part of the alien? Who knows? I don't really know, but it's really interesting. And so coming up, I don't know, 20, 30,000 years, we have writings, we have sutras, we have prayers, we have biblical texts, the Gnostic Gospels, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Quran, the Torah, the Kabbalah, the Kabbalah text. It starts with the Z, the Zohar, I think. We have Hawaiian chants. We have all sorts of different ancient writings. And for some of the cultures, we have them written in a language that is understandable by modern humans. And there are a few people that still can speak Aramaic and that kind of stuff. But no matter, the bottom line is that science is starting to validate those things. Science is starting to validate. In the Hawaiian creation chant, it's called the Kumu Lipo. And there's a recording of it. It's about a 4-hour long tribal chant. It's in the Bishop Museum in Honolulu. They talk basically about the Big Bang. Well, the Lotus Sutra talks basically about the Big Bang, meaning that there was a time in the remotest past when life was formed. And there have been parallels throughout history of the same things happening in different places that couldn't communicate with each other. And that's really exciting, you know. And so I want to bring it to a close today, just about saying that, please don't be afraid. Please don't. You are tremendously protected. You are tremendously safe, and that there's no need to worry. And I would encourage you to explore some of these esoteric arts, explore energy work, explore spirituality, explore some of the nuances of your own religion, and make a distinction, some decisions about what is man, what has man created, rules and regulations and interpretations, and what is more spiritual and what is more unending. And so with that, I think we'll conclude today. I want you to have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe, and we will see you next week. We will not see you. In fact, I think the next 2 weeks we're not doing a live. So we'll see you in 3 weeks for another YouTube Live. Thanks.